All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are now going to talk about the Giants Ravens game and talk about whether the head coach Brian Daboll and general manager Joe Schoen should be back. And yeah, so the Giants, the quarterback situation has been a mess all year. Daniel Jones started the year, and we went from Tommy DeVito to Drew Lock, back to Tommy DeVito, and then Drew Lock got hurt. Well, Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock both got hurt, and then we had Tim Boyle playing at one point in this game on Sunday. I couldn't believe it. This season has been a mess for the Giants, and this is their 100th year celebration. And I went to the first game of the year where they honored all the great Giant players at halftime. That was probably the highlight of the season. Honestly, was that just honoring your past players. And it's just this season has been a colossal disappointment. Um, Now I didn't have high expectations going into the season. I keep saying that. I said 7 wins. I thought 7 wins was good enough. But boy, was I wrong. And it was a roller coaster because after the first game, I thought I'd be surprised if they win 2 games. Then all of a sudden they beat Seattle in Seattle, and you're like, oh, maybe they can be competitive. And then it's just they haven't won a game since. So I don't know what to make of this team. Actually, no, I do know what to make of this team. This team is not good. This team is going to be picking in the top 2 in the NFL draft. And, Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdown passes in this game. They actually, did a good job at limiting Derrick Henry. But you know why? Because Lamar Jackson just kept throwing it against the secondary. You got all these guys starting in the secondary that you never heard of because of the injuries that they're dealing with. They got a ton of injuries right now. But even if the guys that, start for this team were playing, Lamar Jackson still would have carved this team up. I mean, Rashad Bateman scores that touchdown. He makes 2 juke moves and scores. It's just been a disappointing season. And this is how far a game like this shows you how far away the Giants are. Because they are just against these better teams that they're non-competitive. The Buccaneers, who are going to make the playoffs most likely, 30-7. Ravens 35-14. You know, that's what it's been since you let go of Daniel Jones. Because at least, against the Steelers, they lost by 8. Well, then again, you lost to Philly by 25. The Vikings, you lost by 28. Well, you lost 28-6. Commanders, both games are close, but Daniel Jones is usually good against the Commanders. Look, I'm not. Don't take this as me trying to justify them keeping Daniel Jones. Now, they did the right thing with Daniel Jones. However, Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, nothing was going to happen from this. Nothing. Against the Saints, they could have won, but they didn't. But against these teams that are, these very good teams, they're just non-competitive for the most part. And yeah, I think they gotta start over. They gotta let go of both Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And I was on the fence with it because I still think they should keep them around and just see what they do with the quarterback position. Who they end up taking and how they look when they take the guy that they want. But I mean, if you finish the season with 2 wins, you got to make changes. And the Giants, once again, are going to have to enter that arena of looking for a new head coach and looking for a new GM again because it just seems like it'll never end. Just like the Jets, both New York teams, it's the same thing. The same thing. And you go back to the 2022 season. That year, despite the surprise success, that year set them back. It set them back. Because Daniel Jones wins that playoff game, and you're thinking, all right, well, we're going to give him a contract because the quarterback position is the most important position on the football team. We're going to franchise tag Saquon Barkley, and let's run it back in 2023. And then guess what happens? You go 6-11. Daniel Jones gets hurt, tears his ACL, has another neck injury, and then you let Saquon Barkley go, which I still think was the right move. But still, I mean, the way this year has played out looks horrible. The Giants going on Hard Knocks does not look good at all. And it's bad, though, because watching that, I thought, all right, they have an idea of what they want to do. But this season has been a disaster. And I watched a video on the breakdown of Joe Schoen's drafts. A lot of misses. A lot of misses. And the top players on this team are not even Joe Schoen's players. You know, like Andrew Thomas before he got hurt, that's a Gettleman pick. Dexter Lawrence is a Gettleman pick. You know, Saquon Barkley and Xavier McKinney were some of the best players on this team. And you let them go. Those are also Gettleman players. Well, Barkley, I mean, you know, the Giants shouldn't have taken him with the second pick. But that's a different story. But a lot of these players, yeah, I mean, you know, yeah, you brought in Bobby Okereke, who's a good player. You traded for Brian Burns. You drafted Malik Neighbors. But, you know, Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't been what the Giants were hoping for. Evan Neal, that's been a flop. Jalen Hyatt has been a non-factor on this team. Yeah, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And I didn't think Davey Gettleman was that good of a GM. But you know what? He drafted good players. They're good player. They were good players on this team that he drafted. His free agencies were really bad. But he did draft some good players. So, yeah, no, it just looks bad. And at this point, you just got to start over again. I was hoping that this was going to be it. And, you know, it happened the last time, too, with Joe Judge. I'll be honest. Like, during the COVID season, the Giants were competitive in a lot of games. And you thought, okay, they could build off of this. And then they had a bad year. And then, you know, the Giants make the playoffs with Daboll. And I felt different. I thought, all right, they're going to build this team up. And this is going to be a good team. But they let guys go that maybe they shouldn't have let go. And these last 2 years have been tough. It's been downhill since 2022. And, you know, that's the second time that I've gotten fooled. But I don't know. I don't know. So for me, you know, whatever the Giants decide to do, the only way that I will buy back into the Giants is sustainability. If the Giants' next regime comes in, if that's what they end up doing, nothing's been made official yet. If the next regime for the Giants comes in and they make the playoffs their first year, doesn't matter to me. It needs to be sustained. You can't just make the playoffs 1 year and then you guys are them. You can't do it. Can't do it. You gotta make the playoffs your first year and your second year. And, well, again, it depends on how it goes. But still, sustainability. You can't be taking steps back. Look at Ben McAdoo. He made the playoffs his first year. Look what happened the following season. Pat Shurmur, it never worked out. You know, he was here for, 1 year? Yeah. Actually, no. 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. But the Giants never went anywhere. Those weren't good Giants teams. That was the back end of Eli's career. And then Daniel Jones' first year. But yeah, that didn't go anywhere. It's been the same thing over and over again. And you had another plane fly over MetLife Stadium with a message for Mara. So there's going to be pressure on him to make a move. And he's probably going to be forced to let Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll go. Now, I think Brian Daboll will find another job, but who knows? It's just I thought, especially after that first game, his first ever game where the Giants, they won a game that they probably shouldn't have won, but they did. They go for two, they get it, they win by 1 point. You thought that things were going to change, but they haven't. It's the same thing over and over again. And that's why I'm checked out. I'm checked out. I have been checked out with the Giants for so long. Ever since the Super Bowl. Like during, the mid 2010s, obviously I was still invested. But, once Eli left and just, the Ben McAdoo season, really after the 2017 season, that's when things started to trend down for me. I just, this team does not get you excited. And again, there's some good players on this team, but they got a lot of work to do. And I don't know who's going to be making the pick. Is it going to be Joe Schoen? Is it going to be them, or is it going to be a different regime? I think at this point it's got to be a different regime because you can't win 2 games this year and justify bringing your head coach and your general manager back. You can't. So, yeah, it's been a tough year for the Giants, and it's funny how this is going to be their worst season in franchise history, when I still think that the year with Ben McAdoo or the year with Joe Judge is worse. But yeah, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And I don't know when it's going to get better. So the Giants have an opportunity to take a quarterback. They're going to have a top 2 pick at least. So they're either going to get Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, if that's the route they go. And we'll see what happens. But this team has a lot of issues. Not just with the quarterback, but, on defense too. I mean, honestly, you look at last year, you think about what happened with Wink Martindale. It's just, there's a lot of things that just, Wink Martindale and Daniel Jones' injury, just a lot of things just unraveled. You also had like the Evan Neal comments that he made, calling out the Giant fans that were booing. And he hasn't looked good. It's just, it's been so many different things that's led to this moment. And the Giants, yeah, they're going to be picking with either 1 or 2. But who knows who's going to be making that pick. But yeah, I just, at this point, I don't think Joe Schoen or Brian Daboll are coming back. But let me know what you guys think. Should they come back? You think they will? I think at this point, they're done. So we are going to take our final break. When we come back, we will do my power rankings. And that is how we will end off the show for today. So for one final time today, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.